We also know that the Syrian diaspora around the world is closely watching the situation unfold. Many of them were forced to flee their home country, and our next guest is one of those people. Omar Alshogre spent 3 years as a political prisoner under the Assad regime. His crime, taking part in the protests during the Arab Spring in 2011. One of the jails he spent time in is the infamous Sednaya prison. Omar, thank you so much for making time for us today. Omar, it strikes me that you were forced to flee your country because of the Assad regime, and now Assad himself has fled and reportedly taken refuge in Russia. With him out of the country and this sense of cautious optimism, how are you feeling today?
I am feeling extreme joy to see that the dictator that has been him and his party for the last over 50 years have been killing, displacing, torturing the Syrian people. He's gone. He's gone. It's not over for him. He will be prosecuted. We will work to make sure that he is prosecuted for his crime, so equally as his family and his head of intelligence services. But the joy is great that Syrians seeing that their biggest enemy falling, and now it's our responsibility as Syrians to show the world that we actually wanted to have freedom and democracy. So we need to make sure we monitor the processes that are happening today to make sure we end up having an election and having a government that we want to be ruling us, instead of having different groups or people that just select themselves to be our leaders.
Omar, take us back to your time in prison. How did you get picked up? Why did you get picked up? And what did you endure?
I got picked up multiple times, and luckily my mom managed to get me out. But the last time I was 17 years old and I was doing nothing. I was at my cousin's house and we were sitting and chatting, and then the intelligence service attacked. And they arrested me and my cousins and took us to prison. And under torture, I was forced to give false confessions that the officers knew were false. And he forced me anyway to give them. And those confessions, just like killing endless number of officers, having so many heavy weapons, and being a spy to multiple countries and groups and so on. Confessions that I had to say just to make the torture stop. And then, based on those confessions, I was sentenced to execution.
Let's go back a bit. And as much as you feel comfortable, and again, warning to folks at home, I'm going to ask about the torture. So if you're uncomfortable, just be advised. But Omar, as much as you feel comfortable sharing, when you say you were tortured, what does that mean?
The early stages of torture, where it's not the highest level you can reach in certain prisons, they usually start with pulling out your fingernails. And that's an extreme pain. I can't explain to you how it feels. And then they hang you from the ceilings, your arms behind your back, and they break your shoulders. And then they can break multiple bones in your body. That's the start. That's before they start asking you questions. Then the questions comes, and then you're forced to give even worse confessions before you get transferred to another prison, and then another prison, and another prison. And each of them is worse than the one before. And in Syrian, the last one where I spent one year, there's nothing like Syrian prison. It's the worst torture chamber I ever seen. It's the worst voices I ever heard of torture and pain. In Syrian, you're not allowed to scream, you're not allowed to speak. You whisper, and if they hit you, you have to keep the scream in your heart. If you can sometimes let it out, but if you let it out, they torture you until you're so quiet. But most importantly, I can tell you the simple things are the things that hurt the most. Not seeing the light, not seeing color. You don't appreciate color usually, but not having color for so many years in your life, not seeing anything but death, not eating food, not being full once, whether with water or with food, missing your family, missing your school, missing years of your life. But most importantly, being forced to torture your beloved ones, or you will both be tortured. So the guard would come and give my cousin the belt and ask him to torture me, or we both will be killed and do the same thing with me. And more than that, they would come to your room and they will ask you, ask the group of people sitting in this room, you have to choose one of you to be killed today or tomorrow. and the guard would leave, and we had to sit with the conversation as cellmates and say, okay, who wants to volunteer to die in the worst possible ways, in the worst place on this planet? Then try to convince your cellmates to die so you don't die. And you have to make creative ways, have a lottery so it feels just towards the other cellmates. And then we choose a name, choose a person, a number, and that person get executed the day after. I mean, I can go on for 3 years, for everything I went through for 3 years. The guards have been creative in torturing us physically and mentally.
I'm very sorry for what you endured. Few of us can imagine that suffering.
I can tell you that the moment we are living today, freedom of the Assad regime, it's worth all the pain, all the suffering, all the fear, all the disappointment, all the betrayal. It's worth everything. The joy I felt yesterday, it's worth going through everything for it. It's worth it.
I want to address that. I do also want to acknowledge for folks at home, you were sentenced to be executed. You managed to escape the prison with the help of your mother, right? And then get out of the country.
Exactly. I have the most incredible, fantastic, fabulous, strong, beautiful mother you could ever imagine.
Yeah, she must be incredibly brave. So, because we have such limited time, let me ask you about this extreme sense of joy and optimism that you're feeling. And you're not alone. So many Syrians are feeling that same joy. But Omar, are you not worried? Assad's a bad guy and he's out. Okay, but what is the guarantee that something good is going to replace that vacuum? Does any part of you worry about that?
No, I don't. What's happening in Syria, it's not certain. We don't know what's going to come tomorrow. But you have to remember that the Syrian regime has been in power for 50 years, supported by the strongest dictatorships in the world, and yet it fell. You know, the Syrian people been fighting for 14 years to have election, real election, democracy. So whoever comes after that huge enemy that just fell, we're going to bring them down. Because the Syrian people want to have freedom. They want to have democracy. Whoever tried to be in the way of that, we will bring them down. I don't doubt it. And I know that the world may not be seeing what's happening in Syria that positively, because I think the world doesn't have the right to even think or give an opinion about what's happening in the world. Because the world let us die alone, be tortured alone, scream alone, demonstrate alone, fight alone, hope alone. Nobody helped. We were dying in silence for 14 years. Nobody cared. Nobody in the world cared about the fact that we were dying. So now we win, and now we build our democracy. We have to believe that our hands as Syrians is what's going to build Syria. So I would like the world to keep its opinions to itself for some time and let the Syrian people celebrate at least for a week their victory over a dictator that's been in power for 53 years. We deserve to be happy for a week before the world comes with its speculations and opinions.
Are you going to go back?
Of course, I love my hometown. Even though it's burned, we can replant everything. We can rebuild. We can paint everything. It's gonna be the most beautiful place that anyone dream of visiting. I'm telling you, I'm very optimistic about the future of Syria because I know my people. I know the people that were with me in prison. People care. People love. People want to have. They fought. They died. They risked their life endless times to have the day they are going through today. So I believe in my people.
Omar Alshogre, we really appreciate your time, your story, your candidness, and your optimism. I hope you're right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.